Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this episode, we will try to cover as much as we can in depth the assessment of the economic reform, which started by the conference of the donors and partners who mentioned and they said that they're happy about the change and the revolution and the change to democracy in Sudan and civilian rule. So that's why they all said that they will extend a helping hand to Sudan to deliver it from this deterioration of the economy, which if left, it will lead to economic collapse. That's why we'll try to go in depth with one of our young economists, Dr. Hussam Hassan Ismail. He's a doctor in economics and is specialized in econometrics, which is in engineering, into something like measuring and evaluation of the different variables and different performances in the economy, any economy. I think this is a tough specialization, because it is you compare and you go to statistics, you go to until you set the actual measurement. When you say this is good, this is bad, this is beyond. So Dr. Hussam Hassan Ismail, we are happy to host you in this episode, which will be entirely dedicated to the economic, because this is the headache of the Sudanese people these days. Many people are suffering. Many people they fail to make ends meet in the earnings and expenditure. Now the gap is widening between the two ends. So we want to discuss this situation till we come to a conclusion that will people be able very soon to make ends meet in their living expenditure? Okay, so our first question, Dr. Hussam Hassan Ismail, is the government, the civilian government, this government led by Dr. Hamdouk, presented a sizable number of projects for investment to the donors and the partners in the different conferences which held in different parts of the world, in Europe, until it culminated to the lifting of subsidies and going all the way with the recipe of the IMF and the World Bank, which resulted in the side effect of the skyrocketing prices of the commodities, unbearable increase in the prices. Although the commodities now are available, scarcity is no more, there is abundance now. If you go to fuel station, no lines. If you go to the bread is available, sugar, everything is available, but at an affordable price. So some economists like you, they say that, okay, this has to be coupled with the arrival of investors. Investors, as you know, they need a certain environment until they will encourage, because investors are private sector. They will not risk coming to a country which lacks the basic requirements for the investment. So what about this environment in Sudan now for investment? As you know, investment, infrastructure, stability, safety, security. Can you tell us about your feeling, your measurement, because this is your specialization? Will this, what's happening now, will it encourage the investors to come?
Okay, preliminary thanks for you, Dr. Omar, and sincere greetings to our esteemed viewers. Preliminary, there are two categories of criteria that the international community or international business environment requires before they arrive to Sudan. The first category is the quantitative, in my estimates, in my words, the quantitative criteria, and the second is the qualitative criteria. By quantitative criteria, I mean the reforms the transition government undertook in the previous period regarding executing the recommendations of IMF and World Bank, which embodied the severe measures being stated by the government itself. Desubsidization, floating the currency, floating the custom dollar, removing some subsidies from electricity, etc., etc. These are the quantitative criteria being asked by the IMF or the donors, Sudan friends, in order to create an encouraging and attractive investment atmosphere as prerequisites, as major prerequisites. And in this category, the government did very well, regardless to any opposition being conducted by politicians, leftists, for example, technocrats, as the First National Economic Conference stated, and whomsoever. Okay, the government chose this way courageously and neglected the whole set of recommendations. By the qualitative criteria, I mean the internal homework that the transition government should do regarding materializing the partnership between the two parties, the civilian and the military, engagement of the military economy in the formal economy, doing some serious overhauling to the corrupt banking system, changing the currency, stopping inflation, spreading and widening the network of social security, and the rest of these criteria that the government itself confesses that it's still short behind its implementation. And regarding the investment atmosphere, I think in the previous period after the Conference of Paris, in which the government did very good job, tried to represent Sudan in a good way, in an attractive way, after doing the tough part of the remedies, which is desubsidization, etc. And they went to Paris to promote for energy, mining, transport, communication, fisheries, railways, agriculture projects in Sudan, and they there laid on the table of international investors and businessmen a package of 18 to $20 billion investment. In my estimates, Sudan needs at least $90 billion in order to pick him up from below zero, okay, below sea level. But still there, some challenges that the international investor sees and needs some assurance from the government that these challenges at least will be tackled seriously in the coming period, in the short run, before he or she or they come. The new investment code of 2021 is encouraging. Actually,
no, let us go back just to forget about the environment, about the infrastructure and the safety and security of the, because I'm saying this because I read a circular by American foreign state talking about Sudan. As far as Corona is concerned, they put Sudan in a very low level, very good level 1 to 5 levels. 5 is the most dangerous places you don't go. They advise their nationals not to go to certain places. For COVID, they put Sudan as a safe country. But they added that, but Sudan security and safety is not is risky. It's not guaranteed. So this will have any reflection on the investors, the big companies who are expected to come or invited to come.
Certainly, this will reduce the attractiveness.
Plus the infrastructure power. Now we have problem of power.
For sure, this will have a very passive effect on the attractiveness of investment atmosphere in Sudan to encourage international investors to come to Sudan. But let's emphasize also on some points. Experimentally, in the last at least 45 years, whenever an expansionary policy is implemented by central bank or Minister of Finance or thrift policy, as a reaction, or as a consequence, such side effects surface: insecurity, raising of poverty crimes, inflation, increasing of inflation, which in many times being followed by recession.
Yes.
Which causes at the end stagflation, a combination between inflation and stagflation. And that's experimentally proved. And even IMF and World Bank know this fact. That's why they proposed, or they already started to finance the what we call the $5 of the IMF. They wanted, in order to help the unfortunate strata to bear up the shocks, the socioeconomic shocks resulting from implementing such severe measures. They wanted from the government to widen the social security network, okay, by distributing this $5 onto 36 million citizens at least. But even these measures are not enough. Okay, and the performance of the government in this aspect was being noticed by independent observers is very slothful, very slow.
Very slow.
Very slow. And already inflation absorbed these $5 even before it's being distributed. As a bottom line, or at the end of the day, we have right now a case of stagflation that induced poverty crimes, and that definitely will throw a shade on the attractiveness of investment atmosphere, regardless to the deteriorating infrastructure already being existent. Like almost 50% of road networks is functional. Almost, I think, 10 to 20% of railway network is functional. 40% of the targeted coverage area is being reached by electricity. 60%, especially 60% are deprived from electricity, and especially production areas, remote production areas that should be electrified and reached by road and railway networks in order to smooth transport of finished goods or crops or minerals from production sites to the port. Not to mention the situation of Sudan port, of Port Sudan.
Port
Sudan main port. Okay.
Always congestion.
So all these challenges altogether plays a factor in making the investment think twice. The investors think twice before.
It actually impedes the arrival of these people. It impedes the implementation of any project without solving these problems.
Certainly.
Plus the other thing which you started talking about the Investment Act itself and about its provision for the investor to have freedom of transfer of money, dollar. So also tell us about the banking system in Sudan. This is also very important to the investor, that there is the Investment Act. It has to include a very clear provision that the investor who brings money after so he is also allowed to send it back to, or if the profit, at least the profit. Definitely it will not be encouraging if the investor comes and he finds obstacles on transferring money, foreign money to outside. This definitely will not be acceptable. Plus the banking system and the efficiency of the banking system itself.
Investment Act of 2021, in my opinion, which is a promotion to the investment law of 2013, theoretically is very good. The government is very good. Okay, as ink on paper, it's very good. But the problem lies in how the transitional government implement this investment law, or to cascade it down into or to materialize it into attractive atmosphere. Okay, for example, what would happen if we go to the states, production states, Gaddafi state, Red Sea, South Kordofan, North Kordofan, Nile states, northern states, Red Sea states, to see how the investment law there is implemented. By this, I directly insinuate to the corruption being inherited by the defunct regime. Okay, down to the smallest locality and municipality there in Al Gadarif or in Red Sea or in Nile State. They will find some challenges of corruption, regardless to the challenges we mentioned earlier around the infrastructure and so. The banking system also is a challenge. Now, right now, still we have to overhaul the banking system. A lot of debate, papers, recommendations being delivered to the transitional government that the current commercial sector, especially the commercial banks, should be overhauled to be cleaned out of the elements of the ex-regime, to put segregation between the parallel market, the black market between brackets, and the board of trustees of these banks. In brief, we should overhaul the banking system.
So you think the banking system is not yet up to the
It's still a challenge.
expected?
It's still a challenge. Regarding transferring money, I think there is no problem in transferring money outside Sudan. But the problem is in how the taxation system can have an access to these or monitor to these transferred money. Then, indirectly or directly, we are talking about the overhauling of the taxation system. Okay, it's not only about enabling Investment Act and encouraging Investment Act or law without enabling or putting a reinforced taxation system that helps in distributing this wealth to the Sudanese people. And I think these are the major issues that confront the investors: the banking system, the infrastructure, corruption, and the seriousness of the government itself in implementing these implementing the solution to these challenges quickly.
So now it's clear that you mentioned that the government succeeded definitely in. Now what I told you, that the commodities which were scarce now abundant but at unaffordable prices. So that's why I always say that it is a package. The package is what you mentioned, exactly what you mentioned, the $5 direct compensation, which is now is very sluggish. The government is very sluggish in implementation. This 800 million or so, I don't know, it's lying in the, it is here for almost 3, 4, 5 months. And the government, and even the Prime Minister Hamdouk himself, he said the money is only to reach 15% of the people. And because the donors or those, the bankers, I think he put some restrictions on how to distribute it. I myself, I believe that to directly distribute this $5 per head with the criteria of the ID only, don't you think that many people are not in need, actually in need of this $5? Is it fair that the donor who avails this money, he insists, or don't you think that if the government try to convince this institution that okay, this is your Bible, this 1, 2, 3 kids, but still we have something very special. We have a sector in Sudan which is really suffering. Now what is the sector which is suffering is those who are in the payroll of the government, whether they are police troops, whether civil servants, whether workers, those who are paid by the government, because the private sector already did the adjustment to itself, because he did the adjustment of his prices. Most of the private sector, the adjusted prices are the prices of the commodities manufactured in Sudan. It went up almost daily or weekly. The free traders, the free masons or the free traders, they adjust their labor cost to the client. For example, the mechanics, the car mechanics, Definitely. Even the rickshaw, those people who are living, who used to take somebody from place to place at rate of say £100. Now £100 it cannot take you in a rickshaw to less than 1 kilometer. So if try to invest, why don't the government try to distribute part of this money to those who are really affected, and they have the documents, they have the IDs, they have those who are in law, working in the government. What obstacle in this
Okay,
direction?
actually, this is very comprehensive. But in brief, the stagflation that's hitting right now Sudan. Okay, we jumped from the level of creeping inflation and hyperinflation in the previous
Creeping slowly,
inflation, creeping slowly,
hyper.
hyperinflation, skyrocketing inflation, to a level of stagflation, combination between recession and inflation that we will cover.
The very high level, a very bad sign in index.
Sure,
Yes.
sure, this is very bad sign. Okay, this status is a result, definitely, unquestionably, of the economic policies of the government. In order to address this side effect, the government had to have some parallel measures with this remedy, which we already talked about, covered in previous episodes and in the first National Economic Conference. But unfortunately, the government, up to this point, could not do something about that. And let's go to this Thamarat program. Thamarat program is a replica of the Bolsa Familia, famous Brazilian program being implemented by World Bank there. Before the Brazilians implemented this program, they made sure that the infrastructure is ready already, and that they can reach each and every person in the targeted strata, which is not the case in Sudan. The government confronted and still confronting issues of financial inclusion. Not every citizen that is targeted by Thamarat program has a banking account. Financial inclusion in Sudan is almost 3% to 5% of the population.
Only.
Network, telecommunication governance between Thamarat telecommunication companies and the beneficiary is not yet being settled, as far as I know. And database, whom to reach, how do we differentiate between those who deserve the $5 and not? Almost 90% of Sudanese deserve this $5, but the database, we contributed, all of us as resistance committees, in preparing this database and submitted already to Minister of Finance. But still there are some internal challenges that the government did not declare up to this moment. If the government is going to do partial solution, as you mentioned, that to, for example, distribute this $5 onto, say, 15 million out of this 36 million, then it will create problems, because if someone hears that another citizen in another state is taking consistently his $5 monthly, then this will create some hard feelings between citizens. And let's go to the package, as you said. The package requires actually engaging in internal battles with the defunct, inherited civil services. Okay, we have to also, the government has to do something about transferring the citizen from a consumer to a producer in parallel, in order to make use of this $5, which is nothing almost. I have to do some measures, programs, helping these citizens to be producers. Let's talk about MSMEs, micro, medium, small enterprises, to be financed by commercial banks in collaboration with World Bank, IDA or so, in order to help the citizen absorb the severeness of these measures. Otherwise, we will deteriorate the social fabric as we
But I've
experimenting
seen
right
now,
now.
we
Okay.
already seen.
And I think this is the frame of the solution to this
So you believe that the government in this complementary project, which is to complementing the application of the severe side effect of the IMF recipe. So the government is not doing enough. That's what you are saying. In Samarat project, for example, they could have expedited the distribution and reach to people who are now resenting and who are now looting people in the streets, and the growing unsafety and insecurity in this is a side effect of the widening gap between earnings and it's due to poverty.
Sure.
Some people they think that is it something organized by the Ousted regime relics, or
is a hypothesis. There is a hypothesis regarding that. But
it's a hypothesis.
It's a hypothesis.
But the main,
we have to prove it. We have to prove it. Actually, in my opinion, whenever you implement such severe measures, count of poverty crimes increases. That happened in 1989 in Venezuela, in Caracas. Everyone knows about the Caracosa.
Yeah.
The Caracosa at that time resulted from severe attack from the unfortunate strata living in the outskirts of Caracas. They started to loot, kill, and sabotage the properties of the alleged rich people of Caracas. And that happened everywhere. That happened everywhere in the last 45 years. Happened in Baghdad, happened in Beirut, happened in Khartoum, happened in Africa, everywhere. Regarding the hypothesis of the elements of the defunct regime, I think we have to work on that. Nothing is impossible. Maybe there are some infiltrations or some what they call the niggers gangs are doing these raids each and every night. But I think now the defunct regime itself is watching happily what is going on. They don't need even to intervene. But in order to reduce such side effects of this program, we have to work hard. I think the government has to do its homework. It did good in what regards the lifting Sudan from SST, re-engaging Sudan international community, etc. That's good. But in what regards the internal solution, I think the government has to do a lot.
Not doing enough.
We have to do a lot.
But Dr. Hitam, also another factor, people they forget, because now the police force is responsible for quelling such crimes. People they forgot that. We know in statistics, and we know in different countries, we know that they say, I don't know the figure, but for every, say, 100,000 citizens, they need a police force, say, of 10, for example. There is an equation between the population and the police force in anyhow. People, they forgot that the influx, there is the internal displacement. People, they are almost, in my mind, the gap, the national capital now, the population, people are still talking about 5, 6, 7, 8 million. In my I think it is 20 million. We have 20 million. Some of them are foreigners from different parts of the world, coming from very poor environments. And especially from West Africa, from East, from the South, the new government from the South. Now we have millions of Southerners in the North, and millions from the East, and millions. So the population of the national capital has grown to a big number, not coping with the police capabilities in number and in means, vehicles, weaponry, even the transportation. I hear that some of these looters, When they are captured by the police, when they take them to jail inside the police station, sometimes they release them because they cannot feed them, because they don't have the fund to feed these people. Sometimes they just let them go. So this is another factor. The growth of the population of the national capital in last year or last 2 years is definitely unprecedented. So what do you think that is another reason?
Agree. Khartoum right now approximately hosts 15 million citizens.
15 million.
De facto, not de facto, de facto, 15 million, which almost 30% of Sudanese population right
30% in Khartoum.
lives in Khartoum. And for sure, there is no any readiness being or preparation or enough budget for police forces in order to help settling down security. Notably that the bottom line of police forces hire average $30 per month. They are themselves being shocked by the economic remedies themselves.
Okay.
How are we going to expect someone who is hiring 15 million SDG per month, old currency, which is $30, to be so interactive and faithful regarding his job? And of course, this is a problem, because if we dedicate some part of the budget to the defense on the account of development, okay, that's a problem. Notably that already in the 2021 budget, the portion of the development being eroded on the account of peace budget
eroded, yes,
and security budget. Okay. Nevertheless, the inflation in the previous 9 months hit it wide range, wide classes, considerable count of Sudanese society classes, including the police force itself. However, poverty crimes is always there. When we have a case of poverty, we have to think about finding solutions that has nothing to do with security solutions, because you cannot combat poverty with security solutions. Okay, this will create antibodies and very strong reactions. At the end, we are going to create gangs against police, gangs of the poor, joined, being maybe propelled by ex-regime, propelled by real criminals, okay, against the police forces or army forces. This strategically, in order to find solution for such things, we have to employ citizens. We have to create projects, job creation. We have to involve these poor in production. We have to help them make their living with dignity.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's normal. I mean, there is no virtue with poverty.
It's normal.
There's no virtue with poverty.
Okay, Dr. Hitam. Another issue is that I read the Central Bank of Sudan, I think, issued a few days ago some statistics about the improvement in exports and imports and export in the first 6 months of this year. They said it's almost 2 point something billion dollars, and imports also a little bit more than this. Also, they mentioned that the inflation dropped by 22%. I'm not sure of the figures, but can you tell us about this? And if it is true, what is the reason for the drop of the inflation?
Okay, I went through.
If it is true,
I went through both reports. The Bank of Sudan reports regarding the quarter report, second quarter, and the report of Central Bureau of Statistics. Actually, the whole world right now is experiencing some flourishing in the economy. Okay, because everyone now is getting out of COVID-19 crisis. Every economy now is making some recovery. The agriculture crops being mentioned in the report, I think most of them are the crops being cultivated in 2020. They are not cultivated in this year, in 2021, and they appeared in the bill of 2020. Okay, giving some signals that there is a progress in in the balance of trade. It's good, but unless we see this reduction in the deficit of balance of trade in terms of strengthening Sudanese pound in front of the dollar, I think we have to investigate more. Where are these dollars? Where these dollars go? Did they go outside the banking system? Are they, for example, residing in foreign accounts in order to cover some credits for fuel, for flour and so? Because when I see, as economist, when I see that the deficit of the trade balance is reduced, I directly look at the inflation, look at the value of Sudanese pound. Up to this moment, there is no progress in the value of Sudanese pound, which means that these dollars still reside outside the official banking system, although they appear in the accounts of Bank of Sudan. When we jump to the recess or the inflation drop by 35 points, which is I think 8 to 9% approximately, I think there are a lot of theories regarding this. Firstly, the government right now is very jubilant about that. They are promoting that the severe measures being taken the previous period has recently yielded some progress that appeared in the drop in inflation. But when we look at the prices in the market, we see prices are going high. We see the value of Sudanese pound is still stagnant after the devaluation. And I think this is a case of recession, because right now most of the businessmen or merchants or importers managed to reduce the prices of their commodities after the recession, because now most of Sudanese right now are not capable even to buy goods. Sure, we created abundance of fuel, we created abundance of flour, but on the account of reducing demand to these commodities, which is an explicit definition to stagflation. Okay, stagflation or recession. Sorry, or recession. Recession is the case in which the citizen cannot afford buying commodities on the shelf because of the low value of the currency he holds. And in this account, I think there is an explanation, reasonable explanation of the drop of the inflation percentage from 422 in July to 388 approximately in August. So this drop is being resulted by recession. By recession, not by strengthening the Sudanese pound value, not by inducing production, not by even increasing the exports. And even these numbers of exports appeared in the second quarter of Bank of Sudan report. I think they are being transferred from 2020. However, if figures will make Sudanese people happy regarding the drop, so then let's be happy. But I'm afraid that we are so jubilant spuriously. We should investigate more.
So I think you are right, because
in this drop.
Yes, you are right, because in the few days ago I was talking to some one of the traders. So you are saying that the recession is masking the real cause for the drop in inflation.
Absolutely.
These people, he told me that we were forced to reduce the prices from our profits of the steel, iron steel, bars, the cement, many commodities, even in the refrigerators, the air seats, the merchants. That is why, because of the recession, they cut their profit margin, so that the prices went down. This answers the
absolutely, because business owners want to make their livings also.
Yes.
Okay, there will not be any use to have their finished goods stored at warehouses at cost,
yes,
without selling them. they will directly manage to reduce the prices on the account of either marginal profits, or even if they bear some losses,
Yeah.
okay, in order to propel the economy. The problem is the government will manage to increase the salaries of civil servants in the coming period. The private sector, in parallel, will manage to increase the salaries of his officers, and that will lead again to inflation.
Inflation.
So unless we seriously tackle the issue itself, which is the value of Sudanese pound, by inducing production, I think we will always be in this wave: stagflation, inflation, recession. Stagflation, inflation, recession. Okay, unless we work hardly.
This can break this by production.
Sure.
The only cure is the production.
Certainly, and that actually economists talked a lot about production, to the point that now no one wants to hear this word production. Okay, we talked a lot about it in the first National Economic Conference, in debates, in workshops, that the government in parallel with this program, IMF program, that will last for the next 3 years, the government should seriously work on this side. Employment. By employment, I mean harnessing natural resources, employing labor force, in order to raise up the value of Sudanese pound, to help people, the unfortunate strata, make their livings throughout this tedious program. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Also, some people, many governments, when they are stuck in the issue of imports and exports and the gap widening, as we know, the traditional government inherited a protracted $5 billion deficit for quite a long time between export and imports. This is still the gap. Even in the recent report of the Bank of Sudan, still the gap is there between the imports and exports. Always imports are greater than exports. So this will continue. Although, as you said, the government is jubilant, but this is maybe something. It is not a real drop. It is something. If they use it and they go all the way for this, they will just miss the point, the actual point of the problem, the deterioration, where it is. So sometimes these people go for restriction imports of some minor, like fish, they say, like it happens. This is for people, because this they call it offensive commodities, or what they have.
Luxurious commodities.
Luxury commodities. The cost is not very high. If you compare to the whole year, it's not that big. But the problem of one of the areas for improving the production, we have the resources. And the Prime Minister, Dr. Hamdouk, also mentioned this many times. But the government is not going seriously. The export of raw material. We export gum arabic raw material at, let us say, about $3,000 per ton. When it is just adding it outside Sudan, some local investors, they establish plants in Emirates for the treatment of the gum arabic, not in Sudan. So they add the value from 3,000 tons for the raw gum arabic to 15,000 for the same. They could have done this locally. I think there are some studies in this direction. Also, the gold mining is not only you take the gold from the underground. It needs some treatment, which is not complicated. It can be done here. It was already started. Bank of Sudan started this mining, cleaning, or what they call it, to livestock we still export livestock live, walking sheep and cows, walking and camels, without adding any value to it. In some, ironically enough, they say that some in Saudi Arabia, the cost of the skin when they take it out is equivalent to the cost of the sheep itself. So what can you advise the government to go in this direction seriously to restrict any export of raw material without adding a sizable figure to it?
Okay, in order to boost production, we have to confess that we need two components: the foreign components, the foreign currency components, and the internal components. And when I say the foreign currency component, as Prime Minister said, that we need a lot of money to finance production projects. And as we are seeing right now, it's very lengthy walk that we are going to march with World Bank, IMF, IDA, international dollars, in order to bring them heavily to invest in Sudanese natural resources, unless they make sure that democracy is settled, corruption is removed, defunct regime is no more there. There is an engagement of the military economy inside the formal economy, etc., etc. Okay, they have their own worries about that. The second component is the local currency component, and by this part, I mean, I'm saying that the government has to work seriously in this. We have to find internal programs, homegrown, real homegrown, not like the homegrown programs that being said by Mr. Prime Minister. Homegrown programs in order to induce natural resources. We have to support MSMEs. We have to overhaul the commercial banking system. We have to convince the banking system, commercial banking system, to support production on the account of supporting commercial business. But then let's talk about transforming the raw material into semi-manufactured good or to manufactured good in order to better the shape of the balance trade.
Better value. Okay, I have a last question because we are seems that time is by very quickly. But we have maybe in a minute or so. Some people they talk about something very drastic change, going back to. We used to have three important organizations, or companies actually, controlling the cotton. You remember the cotton company or
Cotton company,
cotton
company.
Oil seed company, and Gum Arabic. Three were monopolized by the government, and they have. Do you think some people are calling for revitalizing these three companies again?
Actually, involving of public sector in the economy is mandatory.
Is what?
Mandatory.
Mandatory.
That's a
mandatory.
Must. That's a must. Reasonable intervention. Okay. We all know that IMF will not be happy if he sees the government again in the economy. But I think if our government is strong enough, it can promote for these companies to revive. Already, Prime Minister approved reviving these companies. It's just an approval. But up to this moment, they did not come to existence. If these companies engage in the market, I think they will avail considerable amount of dollars.
Yes.
That will help the government cover its own expenses at least. And reduce reliance on funds, loans to propel production or to finance production projects.
So you are With
I'm pro
you are
this.
saying that it's
I'm pro.
mandatory.
I'm pro.
Mandatory, but it can be they can reach the IMF. Definitely again is
Sure,
there,
sure,
but they can do something about it,
sure.
or talk to to this IMF and World Bank institution, because you are saying it is mandatory and it will help the
It's a
government
negotiation.
in getting some
It's a negotiation issue.
negotiation. But also we have one last question. Now almost we finished. What is in 30 seconds the cancellation of the dollar, the custom dollar?
Okay, that resulted in dramatic increase in the prices of imports, which resulted in recession.
In recession, which added insult to injury. Okay, thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in the last hour or so with our friend Dr. Hussam Hassan Ismail, doctor in economics and econometrics, and we covered almost the important issue. Thank you, Dr.
Thanks, Dr.
Hussam
Amr. Thanks.
Hassan Ismail, for coming in this episode. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us. Hope to see you next week in a different issue. Bye.